Okay, let's dig into this. We're focusing our deep dive today on Isaiah chapter 54. It's a chapter just brimming with these powerful messages of hope, restoration, and real security, especially, for people who feel like they're in a desolate place. So our mission here is to unpack what it might offer you when life feels that way, sort of barren.
Yeah, and what's immediately striking right at the start is this command. Verse 1 tells a barren woman, someone who's never had children, to, get this, sing and shout for joy.
It seems completely paradoxical, doesn't it? Like, how can you sing when you're feeling empty or desolate?
Exactly, it's counterintuitive. But the reason given, that's the kicker. She's promised more children than the woman who isn't desolate.
Wow, so it completely flips expectations. It's this promise of just overflowing life coming out of, well, what looks like nothingness.
Precisely. And that promise directly leads into a very practical instruction. You see this in verses 2 and 3. Enlarge the place of your tent, spread out your curtains, lengthen your cords, strengthen your stakes.
Right, it's not just about camping advice. It's a metaphor, a physical action preparing for that promised increase, for future growth.
It connects that initial, almost unbelievable promise of abundance to a real, tangible future, spreading out, taking territory, settling down.
So the impossible promise actually becomes the reason, the command to start preparing now. But it doesn't just stop at future growth, does it? It tackles the past pain.
That's right. It goes right to the heart of that feeling. Verse 4 says, basically, don't fear. You won't face that shame or disgrace again. Forget the humiliation of your youth.
How does it offer that security? Where does that confidence come from?
Well, this is where the chapter shifts into that really powerful metaphor, God's relationship with his people described as a marriage. Verse 5 says, for your Maker is your husband, the Lord Almighty is his name, the Holy One of Israel is your Redeemer.
Your Maker is your husband. That's intense. And it frames the situation like being called back.
Exactly, like a wife deserted and distressed in spirit, maybe like a wife married young, only to be rejected. That's the picture in verse 6.
That feeling of being deserted,
Yeah.
rejected,
Yeah.
that resonates. But then comes this huge shift, this turnaround in verses 7 and 8.
Huge shift. It acknowledges, yes, there was a brief moment of abandonment, maybe a surge of anger where God seemed hidden, but that is directly contrasted with deep compassion and, importantly, everlasting kindness. That's when he gathers you back.
The contrast is stark, isn't it?
Yeah.
A brief moment versus everlasting kindness. And the certainty. He says, I will bring you back. I will have compassion. It's definite.
Absolutely definite. And then to anchor that promise, he links it to something massive, another foundational promise.
You mean the covenant with Noah, right? Verse 9.
Exactly. Just like God swore that the waters of Noah would never again cover the earth, he says, so now I have sworn not to be angry with you, never to rebuke you again.
Think about that. He's comparing this promise to the one that literally reset the world order after the flood. That's how reliable he's saying this is.
And if you still have doubts about stability, verse 10 just seals it. Even if, the mountains be shaken and the hills be removed, things that seem totally permanent, his unfailing love for you will not be shaken, and his covenant of peace will not be removed. That's bedrock security.
Wow. Bedrock is the right word. And speaking of building on that bedrock, the vision then shifts, doesn't it, to the future city, the restoration, verses 11 and 12.
Oh, it's spectacular. It describes this afflicted city, storm-tossed and unconsoled, being rebuilt with precious stones, foundations of turquoise or maybe lapis lazuli, sapphires, battlements of rubies, gates of sparkling jewels, the whole structure made in precious stones.
It's this picture of just breathtaking beauty, value, and absolute security. Glorious peace.
And that peace isn't just external. Verse 13 says, all your sons, your citizens will be taught by the Lord, and great will be their peace. Righteousness becomes the foundation. Verse 14, so tyranny and terror, they're far off, you won't fear them. It's internal character leading to external safety.
Okay, but what about real-world threats? Attacks. The chapter faces that head-on too.
It does. Verse 15 is clear. If anyone does attack, it's not from God. And then verse 16 makes this really interesting point. It says, God created the blacksmith who forges the weapon, and he created the destroyer or ravager to wreak havoc.
He's sovereign even over the means of destruction.
Yeah.
Both the toolmaker and the agent of ruin are within his scope.
That seems to be the implication. It sets up this ultimate declaration of security in verse 17.
The big one. No weapon forged against you will prevail. Full stop.
No weapon. Absolute protection. And it adds, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you.
So defense against physical attack and against accusation or slander.
Right. And this whole package, the protection, the vindication, this is presented as the heritage of the servants of the Lord. It's their rightful inheritance, their vindication from the Lord.
So it's a journey laid out here, isn't it? From total desolation to, well, abundant life. From shame to this secure identity as God's own.
Yeah, from feeling abandoned, even briefly, to knowing everlasting kindness. From vulnerability to this guaranteed ultimate security.
It's quite the transformation, and it's all promised by God himself. So maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is this. Consider where this chapter says true security and vindication actually come from. And maybe reflect on how that source compares or maybe contrasts with where we often find ourselves looking for those things today, something to chew on.